from what I can understand, there's very varying different levels of depression.
Yeah.
It's a very broad term,
Mm-hmm.
and depression can range from anything of just being kind of generally down
Yeah.
on a day-to-day basis,
Yeah.
Yep.
you know, very at the very minor end, the weather, oh, it's grey today, I just feel a bit kind of draggy,
Yeah.
right to the other end of the spectrum where you're, and then I guess you're at a point where you're in such a bad, dark place
Yeah.
that you're not even capable of reaching out for the help.
No.
So that's when someone else has to notice it and step in
Yeah.
and try and guide you towards trying to get that help. But that once you get to that level, how do you pull that person? How do you save that person when they don't want to ask for help? They don't want to reach out for help. I mean, the suicide rate, as we know, especially in men, has gone off the charts.
Absolutely.
Throughout the world, right?
Yeah.
So how do you help someone like that? How do you access them when they're in such a dark place like that, which can happen to any of us?
Absolutely. You don't leave them. I've read a lot of books, and the one thing, I read a book about a young guy who was, I think, about 19. I'm not sure of the age, but around 19. He was only a young guy, but was suffering depression. He went to the doctor, and the doctor put him on antidepressants, and the antidepressants he was put on actually have side effects like they do. One of the side effects which he didn't realise and was not made aware of was it decreases your sexual drive. And for a 19-year-old boy, that's a big thing. He just thought when all his mates were talking about this girl, that girl, and what they were doing, that he was odd. He did not link that the tablets he was taking was actually hindering that. I will get back to your question, but I was just thinking when I read this book about depression, he was saying that he caught up years later in his 20s, I think it was about 24, and he just had a really low sex drive. That's all he thought. That's me. And he caught up with this other guy, and he had been on these same tablets, and he had been depressed. And when he had said, "Oh, I'm on those tablets," he said, "Get off them as quick as you can, because are you finding that you have no sexual urges? It's really low." And this guy in his book said he could have cried. He did not know that was why he felt the way he felt. He thought he was odd. So he did get off them, and he started to research, and he went around the world and started interviewing people that had depression. And one thing he came across, a common denominator, and that was lack of community, lack of support, lack of people around that was
huge.
That was causing the depression. And there was one instance where he went to an African village, and these women there were all depressed. So he wanted to find out what had changed. And these women used to take all their washing every day down to the river and the rocks and all sit around doing their washing, talking about how bad their husbands are, all that sort of thing, and the kids are driving them crazy. And then they'd go home. And this guy came along and said, "Why? What's changed? Why are you all so depressed now?" And they said that. And it was a washing machine that actually had electricity brought in, and a washing machine into all their village. And they no longer gathered. They no longer shared. They no longer spoke. So they were all in their own little huts, not needing to go out and do that anymore. And what was happening is they were all becoming really lonely and isolated from each other. So he, like with all his research and interviewing, he found that was the number one denominator. So to answer your question in a long-winded way, how do you help someone? Be there. Don't let them be alone.